You're listening to or watching Private Members Club, and we have a new Prime Minister. So for the next 20 minutes, I guess, we'll be going back to where we started with Private Members Club and talking about the fact that we've had a new Prime Minister, so you don't have to. Hi, I'm JR.
I am Matt.
I'm Simon.
We've had a new Prime Minister for 20 minutes, you say?
Well, I was going to say, we may not do another one of these for a while now because the absolute madness that's been going on for the last couple of weeks has finally come to an end, or some kind of an end, or at least you kind of assume it's come to some kind of an end. But let's be honest, who knows? Anything could happen in the next few weeks. So we could be back to do another one of these before Christmas, or this might be the last one for a little while. But you know, we did all the runners and riders and that a couple of days ago, and the whole thing has come to an end early because of certain developments. So let's just quickly go through the developments. First of all, Boris dropped out. So 9 o'clock last night, as we record this, and you were actually recording, weren't you, last night, your review of Power of the Doctor, and you discovered it as you finished, Matt. So what did you think when you saw that Boris had dropped out? Was it, I know for you, it's probably less of a surprise. What did you think the reason was?
I was surprised. I thought he would do a Penny Mordaunt and stick with it until the very last minute. But I think he's just been sort of strong-armed by the party executive and the old members of the party. But you can't govern. He's onto a loser if he. I mean, he was claiming he got over 100 votes, which was obviously bollocks. So he's clearly got maybe 60 votes. But if you get 60 votes and Sunak's getting, 150, you can't leave the party. So actually being elected in by the members, even if you could become Prime Minister, but even if you did, you wouldn't want to because it would be a nightmare.
Well,
there's just been no unity.
Kind of what I was hoping was that Boris would get in, wouldn't be able to form a government, and then had to call a general election, but it didn't happen. Yeah. Simon, what were your thoughts on when you saw that Boris had pulled out? Because that's the first big development, and that's the trigger that's led to everything else.
Well, I'm one of those doomsayers who just thought, oh God, he's coming back, isn't he? Oh God, he's going to get into power again. Just like everyone's saying, oh, Trump's going to come back and all this sort of thing. So I'm one of those. So, it was a little chink of light in proceedings, I have to say. But then you kind of rationally think about it and you just think he's not going to put himself into any situation where he can possibly be, well, I say that. He's put himself into lots of situations where he can be ridiculed, isn't he? But, I think it was a bit of welcome news. I think so.
I don't think he's going away, ultimately. No. His sort of resignation from the race statement, his sort of succession statement, whatever you want to call it.
My doomsayer voice is he's back for the next election. So
he certainly gives that impression. My suspicion, unlike Matt, I think he probably got slightly closer to the 100, but I don't think he made it. And so I think he lied about the 102. And let's face it, we all know Boris Johnson, his relationship with the truth is not one to be trusted. I think he lied about the 102. I think he probably got closer. And I wonder if he then realised he wasn't going to get over the line, but decided to try and make it look like he was doing, well, Matt said last time we spoke, he wanted to do something that looked noble. Well, clearly, from the actual statement he made, he didn't want to look noble, but he said he wanted to look like he was falling on his sword. I think the idea is that Boris Johnson is given the impression of somebody who's had to fall on his sword and therefore is ripe for a return next time. I mean, the statement he made, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically the statement he makes is, I'm the only person who can save this party. I'm the only person who can win the next general election. I'm the only person who can sort this out, but I'm falling on my sword. And so now you're stuck with somebody who can't do any of those things. That's basically what he's saying. What did you think of it, Matt?
So, yeah, it's a terrible statement and he's a horrible person. I don't think he will come back. He might have got more than so there weren't any votes. That's the first thing. So nobody got any votes. The votes didn't actually take place.
No.
Because everybody dropped out beforehand.
But just on the point of whether
they-
he'll come back, he keeps saying in that statement, "This is not the right time," which means that clearly he thinks there is a right time.
But this is what Simon's talking about, which is that kind of doomsayer
It's the Trump factor
mentality. Ever since Brexit, so we thought they'll never vote for Brexit. Every expert's telling them Brexit's a bad idea. They voted for Brexit. Trump will never get the nomination. Trump's an idiot. Look at him. Oh, they caught him saying ridiculous things about women on a bus. He'll never get in now. He gets in. He'll never get elected president. Oh, he gets elected president. Boris will never become a party leader, prime minister. Oh, he does become party. So since Brexit, we've had our confidence shaken by these ridiculous things happening. But I think Boris getting the vote, the possibility of votes that he had, and certain people not voting for him or not going to vote for him in that leadership contest, so Braverman and people on the right of the party, I think that means that, you know, it's not just a case of he's got over his difficulties, he might come back. I don't think he will come back. I think at some point people are dead politically. If they can't get in, you can only lose so many times or resign so many times before you can't get in. So I think it's very unlikely that he'd be back for. It's not like bringing RTD back for 3 episodes. He's not going to come back for a general election. If Rishi Sunak survives for 2 years, and there's nothing in between now and the general election that necessarily would mean Rishi Sunak resigns. And if he does resign, then it would definitely mean a general election, because they can't justify another leadership campaign, and that would be Rishi Sunak running another general election. So the next step is a general election. It's not replacing the party leader, I don't think.
Well, there's one potential fly in that ointment there, which is this. No, I'm going to bring something else up first, and then I'll come back to that. So one last point on Boris Johnson for me is I did wonder if the fact that he did it because he did it relatively early, so it was Sunday evening, so there was still, you know, nearly a day left, I guess, before he needed to do it. He didn't leave it till the last minute, and he didn't. The odd thing for me was that he didn't wait to see how many he'd get and then pull out. He claims he got the number and pulled out a day early. But I wondered if he'd pulled out a day early because he wanted to politic it. He wanted to take those, however many it was, 60 or 80 or whatever, however many names he got. I wonder if he thought somehow they might transfer to Mordaunt. So he might pull out of the thing, but he might complicate it for Sunak anyway, because I don't get the impression there's much love lost between Johnson and Sunak. So I wonder if there was a bit of politicking going on there. But the other thing is, and this is the thing going forward that I think is potentially a derailment for Sunak, and probably not, but it's there, is that last time there was a vote, Truss got, you know, like, not 2/3, she got like 3/5 of the vote from the Tory party membership. So Sunak didn't win amongst the membership. And this time Sunak had to impress the MPs, and some have gone across to him, but he got 190 something out of 357. It's about 10 above halfway. The point being, if say 80 have voted for Johnson and 30 have voted for Mordaunt, that's a third of that number have voted against him, and another third of what's left from there have not voted for him. So there's nearly half of the parliamentary party haven't voted for Sunak, and a lot of that number has actively voted against him. And so, yeah, Sunak is supposed to go in now, having bypassed the party election, the party membership election, and go into the Prime Minister's office and be a unifying force. But I still don't see Sunak as a unifying force. I still think the Tory party is so factionalized that he's kind of, a lot of what he wants to do is probably going to be stymied. Simon, you got thoughts?
No, only in as much as I agree with everything you said, really. I just don't feel he's a strong enough personality to appeal to a certain red-blooded Tory, I think. No, yeah, I think it's as simple as that, really. It may be that he calms the waters enough to keep things ticking over. I mean, that's the most they can hope for, is that he just treads water for the next 2 years and avoids any icebergs, So yeah, and he's not somebody where he's going to make. I mean, yeah, he got fined, didn't he, for the parties during lockdown.
That was kind of Johnson's fault, though, wasn't it? He can sort of get away with that.
He was kind of caught in the after effects, as it were. So he's not somebody who's going to, rock the boat in any way. And I think they probably need that. And I start to think about somebody like John Major, where he just wasn't interesting. People become disinterested when there's somebody quite kind of bland at the helm. And I suppose he is in some respects. I mean, the most he's upset everyone is comments from when he was younger about, how many working class people he knows. And then I suppose there's the comments of where he was talking to the party, wasn't he? And he was saying about the lefty lawyers and all this stuff. And you realise that he's so out of touch, to the and you can't argue with that stuff, because this is how he's grown up. He has, you might as well try and describe a colour to somebody who's colourblind. He just doesn't get it. He doesn't get that other people have other types of lives.
I think his speech proved that, but we'll talk about his speech in a minute, because Matt, I'm sure you've got something to say about the factionalisation of the Tories.
Only that I think with Johnson wasn't a possibility for unifying MPs because of his past, and because of the fact that he might very well get kicked out as an MP in 12 weeks' time or whatever anyway, because of this hearing that's going against him. I think Rishi Sunak, there's a limit to what he can do. He's not going to put any big plan. I think he's going to keep Jeremy Hunt and keep the Jeremy Hunt plan. And so basically there's a funnel now of action that Rishi Sunak can do, and everybody's anticipating it. People aren't going to be able to argue with it because the economy is already being trashed anyway. So it's a question of, if it stabilizes things, then the party will get behind him. But then that's a separate thing than improving his position, the party's position in the polls in the country or among the memberships in the country. The memberships vote is sort of immaterial. It doesn't really matter, because if you're a Tory party member, you'll probably vote Tory, whoever the leader is, even if you wouldn't have voted for the leader given a choice. You'd still vote them in. It's the wider country and keeping your MPs on one side.
Yes, I was just trying to use the party as an illustration for how the wider country might not be as behind Sunak as 197 MPs have made it in order that he gets through this, and they've actually got a prime minister. On the subject of the economy, I think Simon's right. I think the plan must be just to keep things ticking over so that they can ride out the next 2 years without causing an upset. And Matt, you said it too. And so maybe get to the next election at least at least slightly more sure-footedly than, they are at the moment. I wonder if outside of the Tories, it's going to come back to Sunak that, the economy's in a right old mess, and he was the Chancellor for the last 3 years or whatever it was, barring a couple of months where a couple of other people have been through that, or 3 other people have been through that office or whatever in quick succession. But for the majority of that time, Sunak's been the Chancellor, and so it's going to be one of the things that comes at the dispatch boxes, that Sunak's responsible as much as anybody is for the financial mess that we have. So I don't know if he's going to have a very happy time trying to keep things ticking over. But I wanted to talk about the speech because I want to talk about him as a person. The last time we talked about Truss, we talked about her as a person. And I don't want to go too much into this because we give him a couple of weeks, couple of months, and maybe we will come back and talk about how it's going or whatever. But just on the notion of the speech, clearly somebody said to Sunak, you have to come across as an approachable, upbeat human being. So do your best to be an approachable, upbeat human being. And so he stood there with this weird fixed grin on his face, speaking at a sort of octave and at a sort of threshold that clearly wasn't comfortable for him, with his eyes absolutely glued to the auto cue, and they didn't deviate or blink from the auto cue once during the entire sort of 90 seconds or whatever it was for him to do the speech. He looked like a robot that had been programmed to try and look friendly at a holiday resort or something. He looked the least human I've ever seen anybody look reading out a speech, and that even includes Liz Truss. I have no idea what went on there, but the optics of it was just absolutely horrible, or at least I thought so. Well, did you see it? What did you think?
I saw a bit of it, but that's not his important I accept the position of Prime Minister speech. That comes tomorrow. So that's the in front of Downing Street with loads of people. So that would be the speech that will go down in history if it does. So,
but this is the first time he stands before us, and this is who is going in.
I mean, it's also telling that he's been absolutely silent for months, including in this race. There's no statements, no, comments, no interviews, no questions, and I think that's obviously a tactic. There's obviously a tactic that they've discovered that the more
well, as we speak, we don't even know if Jeremy Hunt is going to be his chancellor, do we? As we speak.
No, but I think we assume it will be because, as Simon says, rock the boat as little as possible. I think Jeremy Hunt's approach pretty much matches Rishi Sunak's approach. So there's no particular difference, I don't think, between what they would do. If Boris Johnson had got in, then Johnson and Hunt, that would be a different matter. But I think Sunak and Hunt would.
It might not have been Johnson and Hunt. We did find out that they hadn't been told they had to keep Hunt, by the way.
Okay, I think Mordaunt confirmed she would keep Hunt.
Yeah, but neither of the others, of course, said. Yeah,
not yet.
So yeah, and it probably will be. You're right. But as things stand, we know absolutely nothing about Sunak's plans, which is kind of madness, really, considering he was asking people to vote for him. Presumably, he would have said it to them, of course.
And also, he might not have any plans yet. I mean, this has been such a whiplash.
Yeah.
Oh well, Sunak was basically a backbench MP, keeping silent, sitting at home, and then Liz Truss resigns, and then it's literally been 4 days since Sunak had the possibility. So I suspect Sunak is a little bit shell shocked in suddenly discovering himself as Prime Minister. I mean, genuinely, he wouldn't have engineered this. He wouldn't have necessarily expected this.
I don't think anybody could have expected she would last for as little time as she did.
Yeah.
I mean, she was supposed to have a year's grace, right? So nobody would have really expected things to go south so quickly, but for the utter madness of that financial statement. And then everything's unraveled at a speed we've never really seen before. Yeah, so let's keep this nice and short. Any final thoughts, either of you, about going forwards? I think we've really sort of covered it off. Today was really just about saying, here's the new Prime Minister. No final thoughts?
It's hard to get. Sorry. I was going to say it's hard to gauge, and as you say, any large events that would likely depose him. So, depending on your angle on this, if he does take over for the next 2 years, general election, I don't see him having a chance in hell, but we shall see. We shall see. Boris could well sneak back in and get the dagger in the back like he quite possibly could.
Yeah, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. One final thought from me is, Hunt, we know the financial statement is coming in a week's time, and we know that's going to lock in a lot of things. So maybe Sunak doesn't need a plan because Jeremy Hunt's already got the plan. Matt?
Well, I think Sunak, by quite a large margin, is probably better for the country than the other two candidates. Probably worse for the Labour Party than the other two candidates. I think the Labour Party it'll take a lot to get Conservatives back up in the polls because they've sunk so low. and inaction. Stabilizing isn't a way of improving your polling. Improving is improving your polling, and I don't think they're going to be able to. I think Boris Johnson isn't going to come back. I think Boris Johnson, there's no path, but Boris Johnson can't just sneak in and depose Sunak. There has to be something going on, and if there's something going on now, if Sunak falls, then it means a general election.
I wonder. Well, the one thing that I sort of fear personal level is that with the financial crisis and with the price of energy, that the protections that those of us who sort of work and are sort of, I guess, lower middle class or working class who don't have help with our bills or whatever, if those protections are taken away, our bills are going to get such that we can't pay them. Because at the moment, I'm just about staying ahead of everything and I've been fine. And with the protections that Truss was going to bring in, I was going to stay fine. Although, obviously those protections were not sane protections. But my worry is that between them, Hunt and Sunak remove protections from those of us sort of in the middle of the picture. And we're the ones who really suffer during the financial crisis. And I suppose that potentially is the one thing that could be his undoing at some point in the next sort of 12 months, because if a lot of working people suddenly find that they really, really can't pay their bills and that the Tory party has essentially left them to pick up the tab for everybody else, then that could be something that
they hit the center of that center of that Venn diagram.
But I think that doesn't mean a change of leader of the Conservative Party. I think that means a general election. In that, I think they've run out of excuses not to say, actually, we can't have another leadership election. We can't have a fourth leadership election in the space of X number of years.
We didn't think we were getting one before the end of this year, but we did. So, everything's so unpredictable at the moment. I'm just saying that's a potential slippery skin for him somewhere down the line, because, things are probably going to get very bad in the spring of next year. And although that'll be the spring, and so, bills will be down for the summer, come this time next year, if he's not done something about it, this could be a sticky wicket. Anyway, on that cheery note, until we do this again, hopefully not very soon, I was JR.
I was Matt.
And I was Simon.
And we will speak again soon.